There we go. All right, so we're looking at 6.2, or sorry, 6.1, day number 2, completely different. We're on page 294. And really, we're only looking at examples 4 and 5. Example 4 is going to be the main one. So really, I'm going to teach you one basic new thing here, and that's going to apply to all the other types of problems you're going to see today. So the main thing that I'm going to show you today is what to do when we have something like this. So we have something in parentheses raised to an exponent. We haven't seen this yet. Okay, we've seen other things similar to it. We saw power to a power, like x squared to the 3rd power, something like that. But this is different. All right, I've got 2x in parentheses to the 3rd power. So let's think about what this means, what this represents. Remember, an exponent is whatever is the base, you are going to multiply it that number of times based on the exponent. So my base is 2x. So I'm taking 2x times itself 3 times, right? 2x to the 3rd, 2x times 2x times 2x. Now, if I simplify that, remember when I multiply, I can multiply in any order. And really all of these are just multiplied together. That's 2 times x times 2 times x times 2 times x. All of those are just multiplied together. So if I rearrange that, I know I'm multiplying 3 2's together and 3 x's together. Right? I'm just changing the order in which we're looking at it. And we're trying to get to that shortcut. We're trying to get to what are we actually going to be doing today. Well, what we can see here is I've got 3 2's and I've got 3 x's. So we know this is going to end up being 2 to the 3rd, x to the 3rd. So our shortcut for this is what we're going to do is we're going to take that exponent and we're going to basically distribute it to the 2 parts of the parentheses. So we're distributing that exponent to the 2 parts of the parentheses. Okay. So what we can do now that we understand it, we know it, is we can jump straight into 2 to the 3rd, x to the 3rd, straight from the start. And again, like we saw when we were talking about the homework, 2 to the 3rd power, let's change that over. Let's make that 8. So our answer here would be 8x to the 3rd power. Common mistake is to just attach the exponent to the variable. Since it's in parentheses, we have to distribute that exponent. Okay, we got to distribute that exponent. Got to be careful on that. Of course, as we go along, make sure you're asking questions if you have them, either in the chat or pipe in and ask a question. That's fine too. All right, so let's talk about another one here. Let's go with negative 6x y to the 3rd. Okay, let's change it out. Let's get a little bit harder here. Okay, so here's our problem now. We need to distribute that exponent. Okay, when we distribute that exponent, we are distributing to all parts of this problem. Now we got a number, we got a negative 6. Let's keep that negative 6 together. Don't split up the negative and the 6. Keep that negative 6 together. But I'm going to distribute to the y to the 3rd, to the x, and to the negative 6. I always draw in these little lines just to help me remember that I need to take it to every single part. Otherwise, the tendency is to forget the negative 6. Okay, we have to distribute that 2 to the negative 6. And what that's going to do is that's going to make it negative 6 squared. Okay, it's not negative 6 times 2. We're distributing to the exponent. So this is negative 6 squared. Okay, and then we have x squared. And then we're bringing in stuff from before break here. Y to the 3rd to the 2nd power. When I distribute that 2, that's 2 times 3 for the exponent. I got to multiply those exponents together. So I'm going to have y to the 6th there. I'm multiplying those 2 exponents together when I distribute. Okay, so then I would just simplify. I'd have to do that negative 6 squared. Negative 6 times negative 6 is a positive 36. So I'm looking at 36x squared y to the 6th would be my answer there. So we're distributing that exponent. All right, distributing that exponent. If I got a negative, put the negative in parentheses. Okay, it has to be in parentheses there. Otherwise, we're getting the wrong answer. All right, next one that we're going to talk about. Something slightly different here. Now we've got a fraction. Okay, the fraction, Same idea. We're still going to distribute to both parts. We're still distributing to everything. So I'm going to take that third power, I'm going to distribute it to the a and to the negative 10. Remember, this is an exponent, so it's not negative 10 times 3, it's negative 10 to the third. So that means on top here, I'm going to have a to the third. On the bottom, negative 10 to the third. That negative 10 is in parentheses. That a to the third is going to stay a to the third, of course. And then the negative 10 to the third, I actually have to solve that out. You can either use a calculator on that, or let me show you a little shortcut. If you have 10 as a base, if 10 is your base, the exponent tells you how many zeros it's going to be. So 10 to the third is going to be 1,000 because there's 3 zeros. If I had 10 to the sixth, well, that's going to be 6 zeros. And I'd be looking at 1,000,000. Okay, so whatever that exponent's going to be, that's how many zeros you're going to have. And that only works if you got a base of 10. Okay, I just wanted to point that out. So our answer for that one, a to the third over negative 1,000. Okay. Again, be careful of that negative. Put that negative in parentheses so that we're doing it correctly. All right, let me give you one to try. Let's go 3d over 2 to the fourth power. Okay, I want you to go ahead and try that one out, and then we'll talk about it. All right, remember we are distributing to every single part here. So when we distribute, we're taking it to the d, the 3, and the 2. Every single part gets that exponent. So we're looking at 3 to the fourth, d to the fourth, over 2 to the fourth. And then we would simplify that. 3 to the fourth is 81, d to the fourth, 2 to the fourth is 16. So that would be our answer, 81 d to the fourth over 16. And if you didn't get that, that's fine, right? Just change your notes, make the adjustment, so that when we go back and study it, then we've got it. Okay. All right. Any questions right now? Okay. So let's look at something a little bit harder, something new here. Change it up. We're going to look at 3x over 4 in parentheses, but now we're going to take that to a negative exponent. Okay, so we got it to a negative exponent. We just did one just like this, but with a positive exponent. We're going to put it with a negative exponent now. Same exact idea here. Okay, same exact idea where you're going to distribute that negative exponent to everything. And then you're just going to have to deal with that negative exponent like we know how. So we distribute that negative fourth power. We now have 3 to the negative fourth, x to the negative fourth, over 4 to the negative fourth. So we got a bunch of negative exponents. And we just looked at in the homework, right? Before break, we talked about it, being able to move those negative exponents. So if it's on top and it's a negative exponent, we move it to the bottom. If it's on bottom and it's negative, we move it to the top. So when we go to rearrange this, right, that 3 to the negative fourth, that's going to go on the bottom. That's going to be 3 to the fourth. X to the negative fourth moves to the bottom. 4 to the negative fourth on the bottom moves to the top. So everything's just switching places. If it's on top, it's going to the bottom, bottom going to the top. Okay, and then, of course, we would simplify it. It's going to end up, I believe, 256 over 81 x to the fourth. And of course, you can use a calculator on that, 4 to the fourth. I don't expect you to know that, but use a calculator on it, get it. 3 to the fourth, 81, maybe you remember that, maybe you can do it in your head. Otherwise, again, use a calculator, completely okay. to get that. So with that negative exponent, the only thing that changes is after you distribute it, we're going to have to start flipping because we got to move those negative exponents. All right, let me give you one to try on your own here. Let's go. Oh, let's go with this. Let's go 3x squared y to the third to the negative second. Why don't you go ahead and simplify this one, and then we'll talk about it. If you're still working, that's fine. Let me talk through it here. We're going to distribute that negative second to everything, including that 3, right? We got to take it to that 3. That's the mistake that I see all the time. So we got 3 to the negative second. I'm multiplying my exponents, right? If I'm distributing to an exponent, I got to multiply those exponents together. So that's x to the negative 4th, y to the negative 6th there. And now I've got negative exponents. So all 3 of those need to go to the bottom of the fraction. We're going to have nothing left on top, so there's got to be a 1 there. And then the bottom is going to be 3 squared, x to the 4th, y to the 6th. Got to change that 3 squared, though, into a 9. So we're looking at 1 over 9, x to the 4th, y to the 6th for that answer. So hopefully we got it. Seeing some head nods, some thumbs up, which is a good thing. All right. Excellent. A couple other things that we just got to talk briefly on, and we're almost done here. One thing would be if we saw like a negative x over 4 squared, something like this. Okay, where we have a negative variable. What I want you to do, anytime you see a negative variable, what I want you to do is I want you to put a 1 out in front. I want you to make that a negative 1x instead of a negative x. Because when I distribute now, I can distribute to the x, the negative 1, and the 4. Because I got to distribute to that negative as well. So that if we make it a negative 1, that's going to help us to remember to do that, to distribute into that negative. That's going to give us negative 1 squared. And again, it's got to be in parentheses because negative is part of it. X squared over 4 squared, and then we can simplify from there. Negative 1 squared happens to be a positive 1. So I just have x squared over 16 for that. So important that you put that negative 1 in parentheses when you're distributing as well. So take that negative, make it a negative 1, and do your distributing there. Okay. All right, last one that we're going to look at. And you're going to see a couple problems like this. And this kind of brings a lot of stuff together. There's going to be a lot of stuff that we're seeing here. So we're going to see 2x to the negative second, y to the third, over 3x, y to the negative 4th, all to the 4th power. There's a lot of stuff here, okay? A lot of stuff. And we can get confused a lot of times on this because there's so much stuff going on. There are 2 different ways that you can do this, and I'll just talk through both real quick. One way would be to distribute that 4 to everything right away. Distribute that 4 to everything, just like we've been doing, and then start moving stuff. Okay, that's how we're going to do it. But I also want to tell you a different way that we can do it as well. The other way would be to simplify what's in the parentheses first. And in fact, maybe we look at that way too, just because we've got a couple minutes and it's probably beneficial. Move the negative exponents first. Okay, if I do that, I know that x squared, x to the negative second, is going to become x squared on the bottom. Y to the third on top is going to stay. I don't know why that just changed color on me. There you go. That's going to stay. So I did everything from up top. On the bottom, 3 is going to stay. X is going to stay. Y to the negative fourth is going to become y to the fourth on top. What this does for us is this allows us to combine our x's and our y's before we distribute. Y to the third times y to the fourth is y to the seventh. So that gives us 2y to the seventh over 3x to the third to the fourth power. Now there's less stuff, right? There's less stuff, and I can distribute now, right, that 4 to everything and go from there. The other way that we would do it, like I said, is to distribute right away. If I distribute that 4 to everything, I'm now distributing 6 different times. That's going to give me 2 to the fourth, x to the negative eighth, y to the 12th, over 3 to the fourth, x to the fourth, y to the negative 16th. Bigger numbers, right? A lot more stuff this way. It still works though. At this point, we still have to move those negatives. So I'm still going to do exactly what I did over here, but I'm going to do it after I distributed. So I got 2 to the fourth on top, x to the negative eighth moves to the bottom, y to the 12th stays on top. 3 to the fourth on bottom, x to the fourth is going to stay on the bottom, y to the negative 16th moves to the top. Either way, depending on which way you did it, the left or the right, we should end up with the same thing. That's going to give us 2 to the fourth, y to the 28th, over 3 to the fourth, x to the 12th. Okay, and then we would simplify the 2 to the fourth and the 3 to the fourth, right? We would end up with, what is that? That's 16 y to the 24, or y to the 28th, over 81 x to the 12th. This is the toughest type of problem that you're going to see, okay? This is the toughest one you're going to see. You might see something slightly more than this actually in the homework. That would be like an extra credit type question. This is something that we should be able to do. So I'm going to post this video later. You can go back, watch it again, because we're almost out of time here. If you have questions, watch it again. Make sure you understand either way, one or the other. You don't need to know how to do both, but make sure you understand one of the methods. Okay. All right. Do the homework, submit it, and then we will see you tomorrow.